Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's session. We are honored to be doing this session, and it is now 1 p.m. East African time. And we will start by just requesting everybody who is joining us today that we are recording this meeting. And so kindly just note that we are recording the session today. And we are joined today by our consultant in health and safety, Jeff Ochieng. Welcome to the session today. Today's topic is health and safety risk, and this is episode number 6 of the Risk Conscious Talks. This is our 6th episode this year for Risk Conscious Talks, and today we are discussing health and safety risks. Just by way of introduction, this is First Idea Consulting Limited. We are risk and governance consulting organization, and we help organizations to identify, to manage, and to monitor their risks. We have these risk conscious talks every month, the second Tuesday of every month, and we discuss a topical area in risk management. And today's episode is on health and safety risks. And the reason that we started the risk conscious talks is to basically create awareness on risk matters and ensure that our clients are aware about the risk matters that we deal with on a regular basis. And so today's session is on health and safety risks. And like I said, we are joined by Jeff Ochieng, who is a safety and health and safety consultant, and will be taking us through this session. The session is a 1-hour session, and we are going to begin by a short introduction session, and then go into the matters of the day. And then after that, we are going to have a question and answer session. So just by note is that we will have a question and answer session after we have had a conversation with Jeff Ochieng, and then after that we can take up your questions. We have received 3 questions from the registration, and we're going to ask those questions after this session. So I will begin by welcoming all of you again, just to note that this session is being recorded with your permission, and it is on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is First Idea Consulting Limited. So it is currently live on our YouTube channel. Kindly note that, and also it's been recorded from here as well. So I'll start off with just a very short introduction of our consultant, Jeff Ochieng. And Jeff Ochieng is a safety consultant with his firm Safety Box. And popular for his safety videos on LinkedIn. His LinkedIn page is Jeff Ochieng. Kindly follow him on his LinkedIn. He basically talks about health and safety matters that are happening in our organizations, and mainly manufacturing entities. So he has a series that he runs on his LinkedIn page, Jeff Ochieng, and his company is called Safety Box. He has a lot of experience in health and safety industry, and has over 7 years experience, and prides himself for his keenness to standards that ensure a safe world. So that is Jeff. He's joining us today. Kindly follow him on his LinkedIn page, Jeff Ochieng, and you will be seeing his videos as he talks about health and safety matters that he comes across as he's doing consulting on health and safety. So I will begin by just making a very short introduction, and then we can get into the questions that we're going to work with today. So I just introduce what health and safety risks are. So when we refer to risks in relation to occupational safety and health, the most commonly used definition is risk is likelihood that a person may be harmed or suffers adverse health effects if exposed to a hazard. So health and safety risks refer to potential hazards or dangers that can pose harm or injury to individuals' physical, mental, or emotional well-being in various settings such as workplaces, public spaces, or private environments. To mitigate health and safety risks, organizations and individuals need to implement safety measures, protocols, and guidelines. In order to identify potential hazards and develop strategies to prevent or reduce the likelihood of accidents, injuries, or illnesses, risk assessments need to be conducted. So workers spend much of their time at work than in any other place. Work-related injuries or diseases are obvious in any workplace. The following are some global health and safety statistics. The first one is that around 6,300 workers succumb to work-related injuries or diseases daily, with an average of 2.3 fatalities annually. That is a huge statistics, 2.3 million fatalities annually. Then fatal and non-fatal on-the-job accidents attributed to poor occupational safety and health practices were approximately 337 million last year. There are also over 160 million reported cases of occupational diseases, with a third of these cases resulting to at least 4 days absence from work annually. Then another statistic is that this leads to decreased productivity and performance, reduced revenue, and additional costs for compensating workers by organizations. So such economic losses can be avoided, prevented, and controlled with the right measures put in place at the workplace. So the reasons that we are discussing this is to see how do we reduce some of these challenges that come with occupational health and safety. So we're going to engage Jeff to basically help us discuss these matters. And I'll start off by maybe just from his experience working with health and safety matters in his organization Safety Box. Maybe Jeff, you can start by maybe talking about from your experience working on this on the health and safety space. What are the 5 most significant health and safety risks that you have seen that organizations in this country face as you do your work in in health and safety? Over to you.
I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Caro, for that good introduction and for giving us some lovely, good statistics right there, which are really, really shocking to say the least. Sometimes we really don't pay much attention to matters safety, health and safety. But when such statistics are outlined as you've outlined them clearly, then we are able to see the gravity of the issue that we are about to discuss today. And then before I just tackle the question that you've highlighted to me, I also just wanted to mention that there will be a conference, a safety conference, East Africa Safety Conference in Mombasa, Nyali, sorry, that all safety professionals and consultants can take advantage of and attend so that we can be able also to discuss more safety issues. Apart from that as well, I also want to just commend this platform and this conversation that we are having here, because it is time for Africa time for Kenya to be able to take safety issues seriously, with the seriousness that it deserves. Because as you've highlighted there are fatalities that are alarming, that are happening across the world. Apart from that, there is a lot of money that we are losing in terms of man hours. You have mentioned that up to four days, you know, organizations are losing up to 4 days. If you multiply that annually, that is a lot of time. And apart from that, also just generally revenue, when we incur, let's say, fires and all these incidences. So thank you so much for this forum. Now to our question that you asked, top 5 significant health safety risks. There is a video that this is actually related to a video that I recently shared about housekeeping, because one of the safety risks at workplace is workplace accidents, which result from slips, trips, falls, and what have you. So those is something that is related to housekeeping issues, which we take for granted. And I think I topicked it as housekeeping, the most neglected safety concern, because in our environment, we don't take housekeeping issues seriously. And here is where trips and fall hazards occur. For example, tidying where you've worked, oily surfaces, for example, which cause slips, cables, untidy cables, which result into serious falls and serious injuries. So that is my first safety risks that cause significant damages to either goods, humans, and property. Number 2 is occupational disease. Occupational disease, which is just exposure to hazardous material. And this goes without saying that we need to look at our MSD, material safety data sheet, so that we are able to identify what are these substances that can cause harm to either human beings when inhaled or when touched, and they come into contact with skin. So occupational diseases can result in so many ways in terms of when you inhale the fumes, you have heart and respiratory diseases and problems. Number 2 is skin diseases when exposed to chemicals, such as when you do sprays, when you do paints, and every other thing. So that is number 2 in terms of high risks that are resulting as a safety issue. Number 3, I think, is something that we also ignore in our offices. That is in terms of our sitting posture. So this is ergonomic hazards, okay, which is really ignored in our workplace, and which is also a high, which results to musculoskeletal disorders when not checked and mitigated as early as possible. Number 4, that again also is really ignored and is a big issue right now currently in the world, is mental issues and stress-related issues, which, as we all know, that due to strict working hours, our workplaces are not being formed into a way that they are mentally friendly to our workers. So that is actually the top, one of also the top leading risks and hazards at our workplaces. And last is one that I also talk a lot, and I recently mentioned about it in my talks, is electrical and fire hazards. So those are my top 5 hazards at workplaces that we ignore, but have dire consequences if not mitigated soon enough, or if good protocols are not formulated to be able to mitigate them. So just to go through them so that if somebody not get them clearly. Number 1, workplace accidents that result from slips, falls, and trips. Number 2, occupational disease, which result from exposure to hazardous substances. Number 3, ergonomic hazards, which result into musculoskeletal accidents and disorders. Number 4 is mental health and stress related issues. And lastly, electrical and fire related accidents. Those are my top 5 significant health and safety risks. Thank you so much, Caro.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for taking us through those top significant risks. Maybe I can just chime in one of the incidents that is always at the back of my mind when I remember this incident. In, I think, 2001 in Libra House, there was a fire that erupted inside a manufacturing plant and killed 9 employees who were locked inside the building at night. This case has been determined in court, and I remember one of the challenges was that the factory had one entrance, and that because the owners of the organization did not want their raw materials and finished goods stolen by the employees, they locked them in at night. And unfortunately, during that night, there was a fire that broke out. So from that incident, what category? Is that a housekeeping issue? What kind of risk is this? And maybe just because there are very many such incidents which maybe never come to the limelight, what would you speak about these issues, considering that now our country, we want to get industrialized? Everywhere you go, there is a factory in a residential area. There is something happening. I know a factory which is doing some drying, which is in a petrol station. What are some of the things that you would speak about such kind of things which are currently happening in our country currently?
Thank you, Caro. That is an important safety issue that you have highlighted right there. And fires are one of the most common safety hazards that occur in our factories, in our business premises. And one of the requirements that are tasked with this organization is that first you need to have fire plan. You know, what is the fire emergency plan? And that starts right from the construction of the premises. Is the premise constructed in a way that we are ready in case of a fire? Because as much as we try and mitigate these incidences from happening, the truth is that there are times that we are going to incur fire incidences, okay? And some of these fire incidences occur because of overload of our electrical appliances. So maybe the machinery is a three-phase, uses three-phase, although three-phase machineries are being outphased, but there are some factories that are still running under three-phase. And you want to overload a two-phase, okay, for example. And then from that, we result into a fire. Number 2 is overloading of sockets, that sometimes employees are not sensitized in terms of how much is a socket able to take. So they take a very powerful, let's say a welding machine, and they plug it into a low voltage machine socket, and that results into fire. So we cannot run away from the fact that fires are going to happen one way or another. But if they happen, is our premises well prepared in case of that incident, so that we are able to evacuate people as fast as we can? Does the organization have an emergency response plan, such that this is where, if in case of a fire, do we have an assembly point? Do we have what we call an alarm that can be rung, okay, so that it alerts the employees, and are employees aware that if they hear such and such a sound, it is a fire sound, and therefore they're supposed to head to a particular point? So those are some of the things that I've realized that in this country we are very complacent about. And it's high time that we take them very seriously, because you walk into a premises and first of all, you don't find an extinguisher, okay? A simple extinguisher. And if you do find it, it is probably not inspected, because it's supposed to have an inspection tag to indicate whether it is functioning and which type of extinguisher is it, okay? Which we ignore, and therefore we need to stop being active, okay, or in terms of safety issues, and be proactive when we are talking about safety. And that is the only way we'll be able to mitigate some of these incidences when they happen. In Kenya, I'm glad that we are having these conversations today. This is just the beginning, to be able to sensitize and put the relevant authorities on toes so that they're able to actually take safety issues seriously. And as I close, I would like to say that, and let every other person know that safety is an investment rather than it is a cost, because in the long run, you'll be able to benefit from the cost effectiveness that results from being proactive in terms of safety issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I like that safety is an investment, and also that we need to proactively manage some of these risks, and it is possible through this risk profession to be able to identify the hazards that organizations have as they go conducting their businesses. There is also the OSHA Act, which basically provides some of these precautions to ensure that they are able to help organizations manage their workplaces better. And also there are a lot of regulations in the manufacturing sector in terms of how do you deal with chemicals, how do you deal with buildings, for example. Like you said, how do you structure a manufacturing plant? It can't just have one entrance. It needs to have several, an entrance, an exit, and all that kind of thing. So I think we have these regulations in place, but these regulations are not being implemented. And it's part of the risk profession to be able to create awareness on some of these rules and regulations that organizations need to comply, because they have some risk elements in it. So maybe just to speak one of the top risks which you mentioned, which is actually a very important risk on sitting posture, agronomic requirements, which all of us need to comply to, whether you're in a bank, whether in the manufacturing sector, whether you are running, whatever kind of entity that you need to have, your employees need to have proper sitting posture. And also that they also need to ensure that if they're doing a job which requires standing, they have a provision for sitting with intervals. And this is one of the things which is very, very simple, but it is not practiced. So maybe what are some of the things that we need to have in place to be able to help organizations think through this process? And I like what you say, this is about investing. As you're investing in a business, as you're coming up with your financial projections, these are some of the things that needs to be in place. So maybe from your perspective, what are some of the control measures that we can be able to have in place to reduce exposure of these risks, health and safety risks? And you have talked about many. You've even talked about mental health, safety. You have also talked about, occupational disease. So maybe you can just tell us some of the things that we can put in place as measures and actions that we need to have in place as we think about these critical risks of health and safety.
Thank you so much, Caro. Safety is a continuous process, and it is not just a one-off element thing that you do today and you forget. Okay, it is not also something that, for example, you have beautifully formed protocols and procedures and mission statement and vision statement, and then you put them somewhere to gather dust. That is not how you deal with safety. I'm afraid to say, but that is not how you deal with safety. You can have those things beautifully packaged and framed, but if if it is not followed up regularly, then it is will still just incur accidents. So one way of addressing these issues is implementing a comprehensive training program. Okay, so first of all, develop a good training program and a training matrix. Then now start implementing it. Okay, implementing it is by scheduling and setting workable timelines in terms of how are you going to train these people? How regular are you going to train your employees in terms of safety issues? One of the best ways of implementing this is the easiest one, which we call Toolbox. Toolbox is a 5 minutes topical address that tackles different safety issues, be it work at height, be it office ergonomics. I mean, if you spend 5 minutes at least twice or thrice a week, and you do it consistently throughout the year, you're going to do what we call forming a safety culture that is going to be ingrained in your employees. And that way, they're going to remind each other whenever one of them is having a bad sitting posture. They're going to remind, hey, my friend, you've been sitting for too long. Can you just stand up and stretch your legs? So that can only happen if you have a good comprehensive training program and we implement it the right way. And the right way is by forming different ways and settings that safety topics can be handled. Okay, and one of the ways that I've mentioned is a toolbox, which is just 5 minutes of addressing a safety topic. Number two is, and this one I've done it, and it's a very common one that can also help us address safety issues, and it is conducting audits, inspections. Okay. This is an important thing, and I watched a video the other day, and it was somebody took a video in a ferry, and the ferry apparently there's a place that was welded, and over time, because of salty water, the hinge started to separate. Okay, and this is something that can easily be identified early if regular inspections are done. But if that is not done, then the next thing we are going to have is an accident, and now we have to investigate why did this come to happen. Okay, so inspections is a very good way to mitigate some of these risks. So if it is a work setting, you can go around and inspect your chairs. Are your chairs faulty? Because you can invest in good posture seats, but over time we all know that they depreciate and some of the hooks start falling. So if you don't do regular inspection, there is no way you're going to notice all these things, and we are going to just know about them once an incident happens. Okay, audits are also very important, and audits are probably done bi-monthly, or probably you can decide as an organization how often do you want audits done. And one of the best ways to do audits is by bringing an outside party who can be able to perform those audits, because they'll be able to give you an unbiased audit rather than you doing internal audit. Well, you can also do internal audits, but once in a while invest in external audits so that you get the full picture of it. Number three is what I call encourage open communication about hazards. Okay, so I know some of the organizations discourage, employees even fear communicating some of these hazards. And I know in organizations that I've worked in before, I've implemented a good near miss unsafe act and safe condition reporting. Okay, so in case you identify an unsafe condition, for example, there are normally cards, that an employee can be able to just note down that I saw this and this happening, I saw this and this about to happen. I noticed that there was a problem of housekeeping in section X, and when those reports reach the safety desk, we put them into then we are able to address them and close them and say that this, and we address it to the right person so that the risk can be controlled and mitigated before it results into something that is more expensive to the organization. So that is another way. Another way is provide PPE, and PPE is normally the last line of defense. The last line of defense. So it helps. For example, if you have a hard hat, if a hammer falls from the roof and hits your head and finds a hard hat, it will reduce the severity of the injury. So this is also a good way to invest in safety. Make sure that all your employees are properly fitted with the right PPE for the right job. That will help us mitigate any severity of an injury in case it happens. But we don't want it to happen. We try as much as possible to prevent it from happening. But in case it happens, we have our PPE to be able to protect us. And then last but not least, develop a clear emergency response plan. I think I talked about this in our first question when I mentioned about how many emergency plans do we have? We have fire. We have medical plan. Do you have a good medical plan, emergency plan? Do you have a good fire response plan? Do you have, sometimes when you are in oil and gas, you have, for example, you have man loss, because sometimes people get lost in the field when they go to explore oil, especially oil exploration. So do you have a plan for that in case you receive a radio call that so-and-so is missing? What is the procedure? And many other plans that we can have. So have a clear, or rather develop a clear emergency response plan that will be communicated to the employees, and we make sure that we do regular, what is the name? Regular mock, or rather what we call drills. You do drills to make sure that employees are aware of this emergency response plan, so that they stop being on paper and now they are in employees, and they know exactly that in case of a fire, in case somebody is hurt, what is the procedure? Do we have clearly outlined calls, that this is the right person to call, that will call this person, and that will call this person, then the person is evacuated and the issue is taken care of. So those are the top ways of addressing it. Just to go through them very fast: implementing a comprehensive training program, regular safety inspections and audits. Number 3, encouraging an open communication about hazards. Then developing a clear emergency response plan. Those are my top 5 ways that we can be able to address some of these risks. Thank you, Carol.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. And basically, what we are saying here is being proactive about managing health and safety risks. And this is what we talk about in risk management. We say that we need to proactively manage risks. And so these are some of the ways, and I like the 5-minute toolbox, which inculcates culture into the organization so that people are quite aware about risks. I find it very interesting in this country. I remember there is a time there was, and we need to give real examples, and that's why I would like to continuously give these examples. When there was a Nakumatt downtown fire, one of the things, it happened during the day, it was a gas cylinder which exploded within the supermarket. And I'd like us to speak about that and the proactiveness of doing this. And so what happened is that the proprietors of the supermarket closed the doors and people basically burnt inside the store. And so this is one of the incidents which I keep saying is one of the things that we need to speak about and show people how to, these risks are real risk and they happen on a daily basis because those people were inside the supermarket. They were shopping, they were going on with their daily lives, and a real risk took place, and there was a gas explosion inside the supermarket, and we lost, I think, over 30-something lives. And that supermarket basically was brought down. If you know that place, I think just started activity just the other day. So maybe, and thinking about how to proactively manage these risks and thinking about that risk, what would you say about that incident? Based on the 5 areas that you have talked about, having a safety culture, conducting audits, ensuring that there is open communication where staff members can be able to communicate matters risk. This is actually one of the areas in the OSH Act that says that people need to record any near misses or actual risks and actual hazards should be reported to the directorate. And PPEs are other areas. So maybe just thinking about that Nakumatt downtown incident that happened a few years back and people lost their lives in that incident. What can you say about, the levels of awareness and challenges that we are having implementing health and safety risk measures in this country? Jeff.
Thank you, Caro. One of the things that I can comment about that incident is that I think in this country we take safety as a cost, and we feel like many organizations don't employ a safety officer, okay, and they feel like there is no job that a safety officer will be doing. That is normally the analogy that what will he be doing every day? What will be his daily activities? Okay. Why? Because as a safety officer, one of my activities, daily activities, will be to do inspection. So let's say there was a safety officer on the ground at Nakumatt who is employed and is on a full-time job description. One of his tasks will be to do daily audits. And if daily audits were being done, there are high chances that probably what caused the fire, what caused the explosion would have been found out early and probably mitigated. Okay, so I'm yet to, I don't know whether they did investigation of the whole thing and released a report. I've not read the report if it is out there so that we actually know exactly what happened. But from my understanding is that probably there was no safety officers on the ground who are able to do their job. Number 2, employees, I don't think employees were trained on emergency response procedures, okay? Because in case they were supposed to know, in case of such an issue, what do they do? How do they react? Okay, where do they run to? What do they do? So I think those two are some of the things that come top of my mind when it comes to that incident. Another issue is that did Nakumatt have what we call safety protocols in place to begin with? And if they did, it could have highlighted exactly what they're supposed to do in case of such an incident, which from what you have highlighted, that they closed the door and let people burn inside, that just goes to show that they clearly did not have a good safety protocol outlined. And if they did, it was probably just sitting somewhere, and they did it because of it was one of the requirements that they are needed to meet as by OSHA, and then put them somewhere to gather dust, and they were not daily implementing. Number 4, I also don't think that these people were even doing, something as simple as toolbox, so that people are sensitized each and every day about risks that are in their environment, because workers, one of the top priorities of an organization is to make sure that their employees are able to be very sensitive and aware of their work environment and be able to identify risks on a minute, hourly basis and report them immediately before they transform into an incident that is going to either result in loss of life and loss of property. And in this case of Nakumatt, it did for both, which was sad case. Thank you, Carol.
All right. Thank you very much for that. And I think here, I think one of the biggest thing we are seeing is lack of awareness on risk matters and also identifying those risks. Going to the extent of risk identification, how do you manage them and how do you ensure that those risks are mitigated? And that's a very important part of proactive risk management as we speak about it. So now in Kenya, we have the organization Health and Safety. Yes?
There's something that I just forgot. Sorry for cutting you.
Proceed.
I think also something that is worth noting about the Nakumatt incidents is the storage of these gas cylinders that exploded. How were they stored? Were they stored at the right place? Because there are some substances that are not supposed to be stored in public spaces. Okay, so that is also something that is worth noting. I've said that I've not looked at the report, if there was any, to actually find out exactly what happened. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, because I had visited that Nakumatt, the gas cylinders were stored on the staircase on your way up. That's where they exploded from. So that is a critical thing that, where explosives supposed to be kept. No, anything which can explode, where is it supposed to be kept? Where is a safe space to keep that? And that comes to what you're saying about awareness of some of the hazards that we operate with on a regular basis. So in Kenya, we have the Occupational Safety and Health Act, the OSH Act. And this act is a very important act. It provides employers and employees responsibility of health and safety matters. It also has some serious penalties on, lack of compliance on these matters. But we have a challenge with whether this law is being adhered to or not in terms of health and safety as we know it. There is a directorate for health and safety which deals with health and safety matters, which are critical. Maybe from your experience in terms of adherence to this law, which is critical in terms of health and safety risks, why is this law not being adhered to? And what can we do as risk professionals to help adherence to this law? You're on mute, Jeff.
Thank you, Carol. I think it is very true that we can all agree that this law is actually not being adhered to. And one of the major reasons as to why it is not being adhered to is implementation. Okay, the people that are tasked with making sure that this law is implemented, I think are not doing a very good job. So one of the issues is about compliance also varies, and therefore we need to be doing a continuous training and awareness. Okay, so sometimes you find that yes, there is a law, but this law sometimes is also updated. Okay, but when they update it, do they transfer the information to everyone? Okay, so because sometimes you get to a construction site, you find that X and X is not being adhered to. But when you investigate further, you find that they are not aware of the regulation. Okay, so we all must agree that some of these regulations change very fast. Okay, and when they change, is the change being communicated to every stakeholder so that everybody is aware of it? So that will be my number one reason as to why this law is not really being adhered to, or it's not taken as seriously as it should. Number two is just lack of commitment. okay? Lack of commitment from the top, okay? So the law has been formed. It is a very good law, but is there commitment from the stakeholders? And these are the top management in organization. It is the people who come up with the laws themselves. Are they leading by example in terms of implementing some of these laws? Then number 3 is lack of for this law to be implemented successfully, there's need for collaboration. Okay, is there collaboration between the bodies that bring out these regulatories? Okay, or are we dealing with them as them? They are formed the law, and that is them, and this is us, and they are the enemies, they are the police. Okay, so instead of treating them as the police, as the enemy, as the bad guy, there's need to collaborate, because at the end of the day, when these laws are implemented successfully, it will be for the benefit of both of us, okay? Because it will prevent loss of life, and it will also prevent loss of property, okay? And when we have loss of life, it results also into loss of man hours, which is at the end becomes too expensive for the organization. So those are my top reasons as to why this law is not really being these regulations are not being adhered to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We spoke about conducting audits, risk assessments as one of the ways of proactively managing health and safety risks. Now, these assessments are supposed to be part and parcel of daily operations of any organization. I mean, they should be a continuous part. In fact, when we talk about risk, we say the risk management is a role of every employee of the organization. And that's how we gauge awareness and having a proper risk culture. So the assessments are critical.
Yes.
Now, I know we spoke about these assessments and or audits that are supposed to happen in organizations to, to be able to pick out the risks proactively and deal with them and mitigate them. Yes. So maybe a question is, how often in like a manufacturing company should these assessments be done, and how often should they be updated? And how do we, as risk professionals, help organizations to be able to promote a safety culture within the organization to avoid, those near misses or real risks that crystallize as we manage risks? And maybe as you speak about it, maybe some of the common mistakes that we are doing in our organizations as we manage health and safety risks.
Yeah, thank you. As I said earlier, it is good to have safety protocols. It's good to have those missions, but if we don't implement them on a daily basis, then we'll still just continue experiencing the hazards that we have in our workplaces. So how often should we implement some of these risk assessments? I think the best way is to do them quarterly or probably annually. Okay, that is probably the recommended by OSHA standards, that at least do them quarterly or annually. But as an organization, it also reflects in your commitments to safety by how you also decide to implement some of these inspections and audits. You can decide internally how often you want them to occur, because the more frequent they happen, the better for you as an organization, okay? But the recommended one by OSHA is quarterly or annually. Number 2, something that is also very important to do is please, as an organization, be able to update your safety protocol based on changing regulations and incidences. Okay, so if you had put up a particular nicely formed protocol, safety protocol, and over time, you've realized that you are recording a number of accidents, because if you have a very good safety protocol, it is in place so that it reduces the number of accidents that are happening. But if those accidents are still happening, then it means that you need to go back to your safety protocol and review them so that it works for you. Okay, so that is also what determines how often or how frequent we should be able to update our risk assessment protocols. Okay, so those top two are the ones that stand out. You do them annually or quarterly, but also it depends with your commitment as an organization. You can still do them as often as you want. Number two, look at your incidences. Okay, number two, look at the changing regulations, because as I mentioned earlier, regulations also change because they are updated depending on the current needs. Okay, if 20 years ago, the regulation was that you must have 2 exit doors, okay, in case of an emergency. And then now 20 years down the line, they've realized that 2 doors, because then putting 2 doors was good because the population was not high. There were fewer employees at work. Then 20 years later, we've had an influx. The organizations have grown. The number of employees have also grown. Then they see that, oh, 2 doors are not enough. I think the proper regulation is to have 3 or 4 doors. Then you as an organization, if you stick back to just 2 doors, then you are out. You are not meeting the regulation. So you must check how the regulations are changing and update your protocols to be in line with that. Just remind me of your second part of the question.
The question is some of the common mistakes or when we are doing oversight, because as you know, as we help organizations comply to health and safety, what are some of the mistakes that organizations make as they are oversighting health and safety issues?
Number one is ignorance, or what would I call it? One of the secrets of ensuring that an environment, a workplace is as safe as possible is ensuring that you mitigate an hazard as soon as possible. Okay, something might look as small as just a drop of oil on the floor, just a drop, not probably even a teaspoon of oil on the floor. Okay, and it might look harmless, but that alone, I think there is a video that I used some time back to train people on how that can multiply and result into a very serious incident. For example, if that oil is not attended to, somebody comes and flips, okay, falls, knocking over, maybe was carrying a flammable material. That flame flies and falls into finds an ignition. That will result in something very serious. So one of the mistakes that organizations make is that they ignore some of these hazards, and because something has not happened, it doesn't mean that it will never happen. And that is one of the mistakes that organizations make. That, I mean, we've been living with these stairs the way it is, and nothing has ever happened. So what is the need to, what is the urgency? So that is the top mistake. Number two is lack of commitment from the top management. Okay, management, we all know that yes, organizations are always after maximizing profits, and they see safety issues as an expense, especially because, I mean, why are we trying to prevent something that we know that the likelihood to happen is not there, quote unquote? Okay, so they feel like spending on it is not necessary. Okay, but as we've all known from statistics, from research, is that being proactive is better than reacting, waiting for it to happen to react. So any organization that the management is not committed, that is the mistake number one.
Jeff, are we losing you? Jeff, we have lost you. As we give Jeff a minute to come back, we were just at the tail end of discussing the matters of health and safety, and it's 5 minutes to the top of the hour. I would go through some of the questions that we received online as we wait for Jeff to be back, and one of them is a question from Christabel we received from online, and she asks, who in an organization should be in charge of health and safety risks, e.g. a financial institution whose an environment is unlike manufacturing, oil and gas, etc., that are prone to health and safety risks? Okay, great. That is a question which is from Christabel. She is from a financial institution, and she's asking who in the organization would be in charge of health and safety. My answer to that question is we have a human resource, and within somebody in the human resource, there should be a department for health and safety, and there should be a health and safety officer who coordinates with the operations team to deal with health and safety matters. And again, within the OSH Act, there is a committee which every organization which has over 20 employees should have a health and safety committee. This health and safety committee has health and safety champions, and these health and safety champions are actually the persons who within the respective departments deal with health and safety matters. So the HR coordinates health and safety matters, and their health and safety champions within the respective departments and are coordinated into a committee which is supposed to actually report to the Directorate of Health and Safety, the DOSH Directorate, on matters of where there is a health and safety matter which has crystallized, and they're supposed also to be doing periodic reports to the Health and Safety Directorate. So that committee is actually a committee which is foreseen within the Act to be able to deal with health and safety matters. The next question came from Lina Akinyi. Lina Akinyi asked, how do we give assurance to the board on an organization on health and safety measures in volatile countries like Sudan and South Sudan? So this is a question on health and safety matters in a volatile country like Sudan or South Sudan. Some of these matters of health and safety in such countries and which deal with health and safety matters. Most of these issues are, in my opinion, security related. I know organizations which we have developed for security protocols on how do we deal with matters security in terms of safety. And maybe this is one of the things that Lina, I don't know if she's with us now, that maybe need to think about, is there a protocol on security, and have you developed one, and how do you deal with matters relating to such kind of places that you stay? How do you have a way of informing staff members on issues to do with things that they need to take care of immediately? And so this is a policy that needs to be developed and implemented. And these are some of the things that we can discuss offline on how to deal with that. So I don't know if Jeff is back. Those are the two questions we received during the registration of this session. As we wait for him, we can still ask questions, and we can take up questions as we wait for him to return.
I'm back.
Anybody? Oh, you're back. Oh, great.
Yeah.
So we were actually wrapping up on the question on the issues that people need, the issues of ignorance, the reasons we are not being able to implement the act. So you had talked about ignorance and lack of commitment by management, the reason that we are not able to implement health and safety issues. I don't know if you have any other comment on that. Jeff?
Those are the top ones that come to mind. The rest are just under them. You know, if we tackle those two, I think we can be able to at least address most of them.
Okay, great. So we come to an end of this session. I don't know if there is anybody with a question. I think we had some challenges with our technology. So today we have overrun our time. It's 2 p.m. I request we give ourselves the next 5 minutes to answer any questions from the people who are joining us on YouTube and the people who are on the Zoom call. So maybe you have any questions, you can be able to answer those questions that are coming from the meeting in here and online. I don't know if there's anybody with a question. We will give ourselves 5 minutes. Kindly allow 5 minutes so that we can be able to close the session. We're supposed to close at 2 p.m., but today we have some challenges. We will close at 2:05. Any questions? You can unmute yourself, or you can just write the question on the chat box, or the people who are joining us on YouTube, you can type out the question and we will pick it up. Are there any questions online, Sibyl?
No questions online.
Okay, great. There are no questions online, so we will go to our team. I don't know if there's anybody with a question. I don't see any questions. We have the next 4 minutes to close. We are asking for the next 4 minutes to close. Are there any questions before we request Jeff to give us a parting shot so that we can close the session? Any questions? Jeff, you are very clear because nobody seems to ask any questions. I don't want to ask people to ask. I don't want to pinpoint anybody, but I guess if there is anybody with a question, I don't see any question on the chat box, and I cannot see anybody who has unmuted. So maybe to finalize this session, we will request Jeff that you give us a parting shot and tell us where we can find you when you discuss health and safety issues that you discuss on a regular basis, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Caro. It has been a good session. I've enjoyed it. Since I got into the safety profession, I think from 2012, that is over 10 years ago. That time, I mean, they were just looking for safety people. Safety was still quite a new thing, especially oil and gas. But we are moving ahead in terms of safety issues. Nigeria is quite ahead of us when it comes to safety, especially because they have had oil for a very long time. But I'm happy that we are starting to have this kind of conversation that is going to bring safety professionals and officers to be able to start inculcating safety into our society. Because when you go to other countries, even safety at home is a big deal. You know, I remember there is a country that a thief broke into a house and got injured, and the owner of the house was also arrested because apparently they realized that there was a hazard that was associated with his house. So I want us to get to that level of seriousness when it comes to safety matters. Number two, you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have, I do conversations around safety where I share videos of incidences, accidents, and share just a brief write-up of how we can be able to take care of that situation, how we can be able to address that risk. You can also find me in my organization that we started, which is Safety Box, where we also consult on the same. We do trainings on safety. We also formulate safety protocols and revise safety protocols for organizations. And generally looking forward to just be visiting some of these sites in Kenya to be able to bring out the safety shortfalls that they have, and also praise the ones that are also top in terms of safety issues. Otherwise, I've enjoyed this session, looking forward to more in the future, and looking forward to more forums where safety professionals can interact and exchange ideas. Last but not least, safety is an investment and not cost. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. Safety is an investment and not a cost. I would like to thank you for your time, and thank you for always honoring our call. And we hope to collaborate in the future as we deal with health and safety risks. From us, we are grateful. You can reach us on this, if you have missed any of this discussion, on our YouTube channel, First Idea Consulting Limited. You can also reach us on matters to do with risk and governance issues. And we thank you for attending our 6th episode and hoping to engage further. You can also follow us on our LinkedIn channel, LinkedIn First Idea Consulting. So thank you very much for your time, and have a blessed afternoon. Thank you very much, and God bless. Thank you.